And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another disappointed episode of the Assembly Call, as today your Hoosiers fight valiantly in Champaign, Illinois, but ultimately come up short 67-66. The loss drops Indiana to 18-11 overall, 8-10 in conference play, and really puts some pressure on these two final home games for the Hoosiers down the stretch. They play Minnesota and Wisconsin next week to end out the regular season. But just really, obviously one of Indiana's best road performances today. We talked about before the game on the halftime report, make it a 40-minute game, try to steal it at the end, and by goodness, the Hoosiers almost did it. It really looked like Illinois was going to kind of, take control there toward the end and maybe, breeze to, or end on a comfortable finish when they got up by 7. But the Hoosiers kept fighting back. They kept making shots. They kept making plays. Unfortunately, a couple calls went against the Hoosiers there late, which we will obviously, talk about as we go forward. But just a disappointing loss for Indiana. But, given how this team has played on the road, a lot to be encouraged about in this performance as well. And we're going to talk about it all in this edition of the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. I'm Jerod Morris. I'm here with Ryan Phillips, and let's start this show the way we start every show, and that is with our Hoosier Proud banner moment. And for the banner moment, I'm going back to the moment when it was 62-57 Illinois. And Illinois had the ball. They're getting ready to lob it into Kofi. It looked like he would get it and probably put Illinois up 7 and maybe end the game. And Al Durham makes a great play coming in off the help side to force the steal. Then, he and Rob kind of awkwardly struggle to get control of the ball as Al goes diving out of bounds. But Indiana did get the ball, and that's what mattered. And then they go down the other end. Al ends up getting it and knocking down a 3 to make it 62-60, a huge shot. That brought Indiana back. Illinois goes down on the other end, and Ayo Dosunmu, who has been hitting big shot after big shot for Illinois, drains a 3 with Rob Finney guarding him. And again, it kind of looks like, all right, there's the shot. Illinois kind of sealed it, but Indiana goes back on the other end, and Rob Finney hit a three-pointer to make it 65-63. And so in a season that has been defined, especially on the road, by Indiana's guards not being up to the moment, not being up to the challenge, and missing important shots. Today, Indiana's guards made plays. They had 20 combined points in the first half. They obviously made plays down the stretch. It wasn't quite enough to win, but what we saw offensively from Al Durham and in stretches from Rob Finney and in certain stretches from Devante Green, it was imperfect. The guards made a lot of mistakes, but this was much better. You obviously are going to have a chance in games to win when the guards play like this, and they came up big with some of those shots there toward the end. Just not quite enough to be able to get it done, which is obviously disappointing, but something that we can at least be encouraged by here as we move forward. All right, our banner moment, as always, brought to you by our friends at Home Field Apparel, a company that was founded by an IU grad and that remains based in Indianapolis. Our friends over there, they have over 70 plus different schools available on their website. 70,000 would be quite a haul for Connor. But IU, of course, their first school, they remain huge supporters of IU athletics. And if you want to support, a business founded by an IU grad that's based in Indiana, then Home Field Apparel is definitely one that you should. But, it's an apparel company. If you're going to buy stuff from an apparel company, you want it to be comfortable, you want it to be unique, and that's exactly what Home Field Apparel does for you. Their gear, whether you buy a t-shirt, whether you buy a long sleeve tee, the Crewneck sweater, the hoodie, it is comfortable from the moment that you take it out of the package, and it stays comfortable even after you wash it. And, their thing is they pull old logos that haven't been used in a long time, old brand marks, and they pull them back and give them a second life. And they give you the opportunity, to really show your IU fandom or whatever school you end up wanting to get in a unique way. And so, whether you want to get something really cool for yourself, like the Bison Hoodie sweatshirt or the Script Indiana shirt, or, the Champions tee, the shoes logo, they have a ton of basketball options for you there. Go to homefieldapparel.com. And if you want to get something for the IU fan in your life, it's obviously great to pick up gifts there as well. And remember that because you're a member of the Assembly Call audience, you get a massive discount when you order at homefieldapparel.com. So use the promo code Assembly20 at checkout to get 20% off your entire order. That's Assembly20 for 20% off your entire order. Go to homefieldapparel.com today. Get the most unique and comfortable IU apparel that you will find anywhere. All right, well, it is time to move the ball, find the open man, and get some opening thoughts from the rest of our team today. That is Ryan Phillips. Ryan, your opening rant on this Indiana loss.
Here's what I don't understand. We can talk about the calls late. I thought the most egregious. Look, I thought that Rob Finney got tripped on that possession. I don't think that was the most egregious call. I get it. It was kind of a scrum. Guy trips over another guy's foot. It was a foul, but I get missing that in a scrum late. I get missing that Illinois didn't really have possession of the ball when they called the timeout, and you gave them the timeout and possession. I get missing that again. Scramble on the floor, tough call to make. The call that they missed that drove me nuts was Durham shot a 3-pointer and missed it by about 4 feet. And it was clear to anybody watching live that he got fouled, that he got hammered on the elbow. They showed the replay. He got hit on the elbow very clearly. And it wasn't like Durham didn't react. He reacted immediately, asking for a call, begging for a call. It was clear he got fouled shooting a 3. Whether or not that 3 goes in, I don't know. But he deserved 3 free throws, and he's IU's best free throw shooter. Does that change the outcome of the game? I don't know. But I don't know how an official can miss that call. You miss 2 guys on the inside going up against each other and kind of banging into each other, and you don't call a foul. I get that. A wide open 3 that misses by 5 feet and flutters out of bounds, you don't think that maybe there was some contact on the elbow? And this is what I'm going to get into, really, is the replay rule in college basketball. We've talked about this a few times. And by the way, I have really held back on referees this year. It is because there've been plenty other issues with Indiana to talk about. But when it really affects the game at the end of a game, I don't care if you miss a foul. I know a lot of people don't agree with this. I don't care if you miss a foul with 15 minutes left in the first half or 15 minutes left in the second half. At the end of the game, just like players need to be playing their best at the end, the officials need to be at their best when the game is on the line. They need to step up too. And so I hear a lot of people say, well, if it's a foul with 15 minutes to go, it's you know what? It's different at the end of the game because you're legitimately affecting the end of the game, and there's no chance for people to adjust to you and adjust to your calls. So 15 minutes left to go in the first half, you can adjust to a bad call. You say, okay, you know what? Let's run a play and do this, and we'll make up for that. With no time left on the clock, you can't adjust, and you can't make up for a bad call. So the thing that drives me nuts is replay right now. When Durham took that 3-pointer, got hit on the elbow, they didn't call the foul, and it fluttered out of bounds. They reviewed whether or not it was tipped to go out of bounds, and that's why, because Indiana was reacting and saying it was a foul. So they took the time to review it. The problem with replay is you can't review and say, oh, yeah, he clearly got fouled on that. That should be 3 shots. They can only check possession. And I'm not saying you should do that on every play, but with a minute left, if you miss a call like that, it's pretty consequential. And even if you're not going to give the foul to the guy and you say, you know what, that we can't give him a foul because we missed the call, we should give the ball to Indiana, though, because the reason the ball went out of bounds was because he got fouled. Or figure out some way to change that. So you're not penalizing Illinois for the fact that the officials missed the call and giving 3 free throws or an easy bucket or whatever. You at least make up for the fact that you screwed up so badly. That ball goes, we determined there was a foul. We didn't call it. We're not going to add a foul, but we'll give the ball to Indiana. This is the same thing that happened in the national championship game to Texas Tech last year, where a Texas Tech player had the ball, was dribbling it, got collided into by a Virginia guy, and the ball was originally off of Virginia. They reviewed it and saw that at the last millisecond, it went off the Texas Tech guard's, the end of his tip of his finger, and they had to switch possession when the only reason the ball went out of bounds was because he was collided into by somebody and it was a clear foul. The NCAA needs to change this, because at the end of the day, if the ball goes out of bounds because you were fouled, it shouldn't be about who touched it last. It should be, why did the ball go out of bounds? And I know that's a gray area, and I know it's something they have to make some rules on and everything, but the replay situation is stupid right now. It is. That ball went out of bounds off Indiana because Durham got fouled. And I can guarantee you, Indiana would have rather had a brick off the backboard than the ball fluttering out of bounds like that, because at least they would have had a chance for an offensive rebound or something of that matter. So I don't get the way that games are officiated, and I don't get the replay system because it is inequitable and it doesn't make sense. And it, in some cases, punishes people who are doing the right things and lets the people who are doing the wrong things off the hook for a missed call by an official. So at the end, again, the Rob Finney play, I thought he was fouled. While that's a bummer that they missed that call, I get missing that call kind of in a late scrum and a kid kind of has the ball and loses it. I get not getting the possession call right. It stinks that it happened, but that Durham call was egregious, and that's a game-changing call because Durham had just hit a 3. Not saying he makes that one, but he gets fouled on a 3. He's Indiana's best free throw shooter, and he's at the line for 3 shots. That changes the outcome of the game, and the officials missed the call, and that's on them. And people who don't think there are problems in college basketball officiating are not watching games, are the people who don't watch games. The Big Ten commissioner doesn't think there's a problem with officiating in college basketball games. He's wrong. There is a problem. They miss too many calls. I don't know if you have to add another official. I don't know if you have to retrain these guys. I don't know, but they're missing too many calls in key situations, and it's been a real problem this year. It's been a problem for 20 years. We're talking about this year when there's a lot of close games between a lot of teams. They're missing more calls, and it's insane, and it's out of control. Illinois now if Durham gets those free throws, Illinois may come down, hit a three, win it, walk off. But they shouldn't have been put in that situation. It was a bad call, and then they further compound it by the stupid replay rule.
Yeah. I'm usually not a big fan of ref rants to begin games.
I'm not either. I've been holding back this year.
I know, and we haven't done it much, but I agree with the sentiment and the tone of what you're saying. Because look, Indiana made enough mistakes down the stretch, to lose this game. Obviously, Trayce Jackson-Davis misses a couple free throws. They had a 6-minute drought, there toward the end of the second half. This was by no means a perfect Indiana performance, but to your point, it would have been nice to see at the end, just see it officiated fairly, and let's see what happens at the end. And those were really big calls. They took possessions away from Indiana, and so I share your disappointment there.
Again, not the only reason IU lost. IU had stretches in this game where it didn't play well and let Illinois run away, and then they had to make that furious comeback. And again, when you're making that furious comeback, you're relying on the officials to do, something to help you out in certain situations, and you need that Durham call to get back into it. Totally agree with people who take that stance and the referees are bad in every game and everything. I know. I'm just saying at the end of the game, there is a very obvious call that one of the three officials on the floor should have made. Yes. And it's ridiculous that it didn't get made. And again, whether that means win a game or lose a game, I don't know, but it certainly changes the game. And officiating and missed calls should not change the game. Yep.
So I really thought that this, as we now kind of analyze this game, I thought the story of the game coming in was going, there's a lot of things, the guards are going to have to play well, a lot of things are going to have to happen, but I thought the most important key was how was Trayce going to play today? He's been a guy who's been very up and down on the road. It was basically going to be a mano-a-mano battle against Kofi Coburn, who is, kind of his main challenger for Big Ten Freshman of the Year. And we know that this team plays so much better when Trayce gets a lot of shots. He's got to get 14, 15, 16 shots, even if he's not making a high percentage of them. And I thought in the first half, things went really well. Trayce had scored 10 points. He had 6 boards. He was second on the team in shots attempted with 5. He struggled to kind of get in the flow of the offense for a certain stretch of the first half, but he found ways to get points on offensive rebounds and to get work done. In the second half, a lot of that went away as he only gets 2 points. He only took 4 shots. He made 1. At least 2 of the other ones were blocked by Kofi Coburn. Now, he did have 6 rebounds and had 3 offensive rebounds and had a couple of blocks on his own. But when you look at a game that Indiana only loses by 1, in part because some of those possessions were taken away at the end, and obviously in part because Rob Finney drained that 3 on the final possession, you start looking at what's the biggest difference. Trayce Jackson-Davis has to get more than 4 shots in a winnable game on the road. You look at the shots in the second half. Rob took 7. Devante took 6. Jerome took 4. Durham took 4. Justin Smith took 4. Trayce Jackson-Davis took 4. He should not be one of the guys with the fewest amount of shots. And I get that Coburn was in there playing really good defense. A lot of his shots were getting blocked anyway. I don't care. He needed to find a way to get the ball more. Indiana needed to find a way to get him the ball more. And to me, that's really where this game swung, was him not being able to get more involved there in the second half. And so, if Indiana is going to go win some of these tougher games away from home, and look, they were better against Purdue on the road than they've been in other games, and they were better today than they were against Purdue. So we are seeing some progress. But for Indiana to take these better efforts and, hey, they were better, and turn it into wins, Trayce has to be a guy who is more assertive, and his teammates have to get him the ball. And that to me, if you get him 2, 3, 4 more shots somehow, some way, it's probably the difference in the ball game. And so somehow, some way, that's got to start happening in these road games.
Yeah, and look, let's be real. This is a tough matchup for Trayce with Kofi Coburn. By the way, it's Cockburn. Why does he go with Coburn? It's not.
Let him go by whatever he wants.
I know. I'm just kidding. My girlfriend and I were just joking about it because it's like, well, of course you don't want to be called Cockburn. Come on, but it's with him sitting on the weak side. That's a tough matchup. And we saw Coburn block him a few times and come over and do that. And that, again, that's just that physically that's a tough matchup. And we saw Coburn on him a few times and it just didn't work out. And here's the difference too. I mean, Coburn went to the free throw line 10 times. Trayce went 4 times. He wasn't able to get calls, and he was, and I don't mean that the officials missed calls. I mean, he wasn't able to earn the calls.
Yeah, he didn't create calls.
Yes. And Coburn, just by his size, was able to get positioning and just kind of go to the middle of the defense, because Indiana didn't really have anybody who could match up with him. Joey Brunk got ragdolled by him a few times, and Jerod and Davis we only saw for 8 minutes. He didn't really get a whole lot of run against Coburn. But I think that was the issue, is that there was a 7-foot guy, on the weak side and ready to block his shot every occasion. And every time he got the ball, you would see Coburn just completely turn his back on his guy and just focus on when Trayce was going to go up and get ready to block it. Now, he beat him sometimes, but it's a tough matchup. And that's the kind of matchup where when you have that on the inside, I agree, getting him going is a huge deal. And they did a great job getting him the ball in that last possession where he wound up getting fouled. But getting him going is a big deal. But here's the thing. The guards have to get going to open that up a little bit more. And maybe some other people have to drive to draw Coburn's attention. Or you got to have people go at Coburn on the drive and be willing to take a foul and get him to the bench. You've got to remove that guy from the equation if he's dominating you like that. Indiana did try and do that a few times. I mean, Devonte Green went up against him a couple times, got 1 foul, got 3 where they didn't call it. And, whether those were fouls or not, I don't know, just based on the way the game was being called. But, that's what you have to do. I thought Indiana actually tried to do that, to go at him and just say, either block this or foul us, one of the two. And they only drew 2 fouls. So again, a guy who's competing for Big Ten Freshman of the Year and just like Trayce is going to get a little leeway on calls when he's playing defense. I think that Coburn got some calls defensively. I think that that helped the fact that he was just planted in the paint all day, didn't have to move. And then, he played 35 minutes and he was just planted in the paint. And it's hard to get going against a guy like that. It really is. You've got to win, with some outside shots in that situation. And look, Indiana went 8 of 16 from 3. I mean, that's how they stayed in the game, was they knocked down some shots, and they clearly weren't going to get it at the rim all day, although they played decently in the paint. I mean, they stayed within arm's reach of Illinois in points in the paint. I think it was 28-32. And if you would ask me that at the beginning of the game, I would have said that wouldn't happen today, because I just think that they have they're good drivers and they have that presence in the middle. So I think that it's just a tough game for Trayce to get going, and especially without other help on the block, really. Race Thompson was in foul trouble for a stretch of the game. He never got going offensively, but I thought he, again, provided what he provides, just not for as long as we would, have hoped it.
Yeah, no, it was, and I think part of the issue with Trayce is he was obviously aware that Coburn was there, and I think maybe some shot fakes, a little more patience at time might have helped. I think that you did a good job of diagnosing a lot of the reasons why it was tough, and yet bottom line, for Trayce to play 33 minutes and only get 9 shots, that is a formula for Indiana losing a road game. And that's what happened today, is Indiana lost a road game.
I mean, before the game,
that's something as you move forward now, and you're taking, what lessons have we learned from the last couple of weeks? It's, you have got to find a way to get Trayce going and get him more shots, because that's the way that Indiana's going to win. Because Devante made some shots, but he also took some crazy ones. Justin Smith, he took a few shots that jumper. I thought Justin Smith did a few nice things inside, but some of those jumpers he took, like,
when he goes
those
to the
are
rim,
shots that need to become shots for Trayce right there. And if you make that substitution, again, you may end up winning this game.
Yeah, and look, Justin Smith, when he goes to the rim, since you mentioned him, when he goes to the rim, I have no problem with his offense. The long 2s and the 3s, get those out of doing, get those out. It's not working right now. I mean, maybe he can shoot those, but he's not making them. And the drive to the middle of the lane with your feet facing out of bounds and the rest of your body face towards the hoop, that's not working either. Go to the rim. He's got the athleticism. I think that's why so many people get frustrated with Justin, because he's so athletic and he's so talented. When he's moving forward and his whole posture is towards the rim as opposed to leaning back and away from it or playing from the outside, he's a different player. And when he gets going towards the rim with momentum, it's hard to stop him because he's athletic, he's strong, and he's a good finisher. The frustration comes when he gets the ball in the lane and kind of leans backwards and fires it instead of going up strong and going over people. And It's just a confidence thing. I think he's athletic enough to get it done. And I think that's what's the most frustrating thing about Justin's game is that he could have done that probably a couple more times today and maybe backdoor cut and gotten something, that way, but it just wasn't there. And that's frustrating. There were a couple times he popped jumpers in a row and it was just kind of like, man, there's better offense out there for you specifically, not just for Indiana, but for you specifically.
It does get a little bit difficult. There's a lot of lineups out there where you have, two guards, Justin Smith, Race Thompson, Trayce Jackson-Davis. You're playing with only two shooters on the court because Race has stopped looking at the rim. I mean, have you noticed that when Race gets the ball outside now, he's not even looking to shoot. And a few weeks ago, he was looking to take that shot. And I actually would like him. I mean, out of, those three guys, obviously
he can take one a game for me. He can take one a game. If he makes it, take two.
Just to make himself a threat because teams have stopped even looking at him out there. And look, offense is really hard. I liked at the end of the game when Archie put Jerome in there. So at least you've got three shooters on the court.
Yeah.
I mean, you were trying to play with only two shooters, and one of them's got the ball in his hands a lot of times. I mean, it makes you really easy to defend, and that's another reason why Trayce had trouble getting going.
And we've continued to see what the formula is for Justin. I texted you guys during the game. There's one where he got a wide open three on the wing, and he held it for a second and then shot it and was way short. And I texted everybody.
Jerome, you mean?
Yeah, Jerome, yeah. And I texted everybody, and I said, he just needs to shoot. As soon as you catch it, shoot it. Get in your motion. Shoot. Don't think about it. And the next two, he caught it. He had those two great threes where he caught it, put it up, caught it, put it up. He's the kind of guy that does not need to think right now.
And those were huge plays. So I was going to talk about that next segment, but let's linger on it real quick because it warrants talk in the first segment. It was 47-42. Indiana was really struggling offensively, and it felt like a danger zone, a lot like the Penn State game. Remember that, where the offense is really struggling? Penn State took a 5-point lead. Jerome made that big three, which got us going again. Same thing today. And look, Jerome gets a lot of credit for making those 2 threes, and he should, because on the one, he really relocated smartly to the corner. On the other one, he was in transition. He ran the court well. But I give Devonte Green a lot of credit for finding him. Because on the first one, Devonte Green kind of probed the defense, and instead of throwing up a wild shot, he kind of did that Yogi thing where he kept his dribble down the baseline and found Jerome, who, again, showed the offensive awareness to relocate. And then the other one was in transition, and Devante had his head up, found Jerome. Those plays were huge and gave Indiana the lead and got him going. And I'll tell you what's so important is for a team with a lot of guys who seem to struggle with the confidence in their shot, Jerome Hunter is a guy who, no matter how many he's missed, and even though he had that wide open one that he missed, he has supreme confidence in his shot. He always thinks the next one is going down. And that's important. Now look, he got blown by on D a lot today, and I'm sure he gave up more points than he scored.
He was a bad matchup guard-wise for him.
It was. And he's going to have to get better at that.
Yes.
But just timing and meaning, those 2 threes were huge, and that's something he's become a guy that when you really need some offense and things are struggling, get him in there because he'll fire one up with confidence, and he's shown that he can make them in those moments. So would have liked
a couple assists today too. I mean, he was doing good things on the offensive end.
He did not have as many of the panic passes today. Yep. He was stronger with the ball. Got rid of those turnovers. So some signs of growth from Jerome, but also from Jerome, the signs of the things that still have to come, especially on the defensive end.
And a lot of that's just development stuff that he's going to get better at as he sees more time and has more practice time and all of that stuff.
Yep. All right, coming up as we continue our breakdown of Indiana's 1-point loss to Illinois on the road today, I will point out today's meaningful moments that you might have missed, and then we will go inside the numbers to highlight the most important statistical notes from the game. You are listening to the Assembly Call. Stick with us.
This is Verdell Jones. What's better than an epic buzzer beater? The full court dribble and a perfectly placed pass to set it all up. And of course celebrating with Hoosier Nation afterwards. So join Jerod, Andy, Ryan, and Coach on the Assembly Call after every IU basketball game. Go Hoosiers.
Thank you, Verdell. You are listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I'm Jared Morris here with Ryan Phillips. We are breaking down Indiana's 67-66 loss to Illinois today in Champaign. Ryan, it's time for today's meaningful moments that you might have missed. And, Al Durham, we talked about him during the banner moment, obviously making that huge three-pointer and the big defensive play that he made on Coburn. But, I thought some of the other biggest plays in the game, in addition to obviously the threes that Jerome hit that we talked about last segment, I thought Al delivered some other plays that were absolutely huge. There was a play in the second half. Indiana was down 7 with 5:27 to go. One of the biggest danger moments they faced the entire game. Illinois is at the line with a 60-53 lead, about to push it out to an 8-point lead. Andres Feliz misses the free throw, and Al just went after the rebound hard and got fouled. It was a really aggressive attempt at the rebound for Al. He got it. He gets fouled, makes both free throws. And so instead of Illinois being up 8, it's a 5-point game. And I thought those free throws were huge because, again, we were really struggling to get anything going. And, what it reminded me of is that when Al plays physical and when Al plays alert, he can be a real difference maker.
Because he's not wilting from contact,
Right, and think about what started Indiana's offensive drought. I think it was 53-51. Yeah, 55-53. They went on that offensive drought. What was the first possession of the drought? Rob Finney throws a pass to Al on the wing, and he just drops the ball out of bounds.
Just goes out of bounds.
Those are the kinds of plays Al cannot make. But, when he's alert and physical like the rebound, that's big. I'll go back to the first half. In any road game, especially in a charged-up environment, you've got to get off to a good start. And Illinois jumped out to a 10-4 lead. We're struggling a little bit. And Al had a nice little sequence of plays. He got a big rebound, got fouled, made the free throws. That made it 10-6. On the next possession, he had a great assist to Trayce Thompson, which made it 10-8. Those were two really big plays. Devante Green would then make a couple of threes and actually give Indiana the lead.
Yeah.
But when it was 10-4, those were big plays. Later on, in the half, I believe it was in the first half, Al had that drive into the lane, came after Rob Finney's, and he drives. And again, what have we talked about with Al? When you drive to score, don't drive to get fouled, things work out so much better, and he did. So for the game, Al finished with 13 points. And whereas Rob needed 13 shots to get his 10 points and Devante needed 11 shots to get his 11 points, it took Al 6 shots to get his 13 points. He got 5 free throws. He hit a couple of threes, only had that one turnover and that huge steal on Coburn. This was a winning effort from Al Durham today. And you need performances like this from upperclassmen to win on the road. Now, Al, like everybody, had trouble containing dribblers. So I know everybody's going to say, well, he gave up some on defense, and he did. This was an overall solid team defensive effort, but some of the guards really got exposed on the dribble penetration. And I get that, and Al still struggles there. He couldn't guard Io. I get all of those limitations. But what you need from Al in road games like this is offensive contributions. And I thought for the most part today, he really brought it. And a lot of those moments were really big plays. When Indiana needed someone to step up, he did. And so we've been tough on him. But this is the kind that you can win with this kind of performance from Al Durham. And he's got to bottle this. If Indiana's going to go win in the Big Ten tournament, win in the NCAA tournament, if they get there, win these last 2 home games, you got to get more performances like this from Al Durham.
Yeah, and look, Al in the offseason needs to work on his feet defensively and work on, being able to go side to side and being able to contain the dribble. And I think that's something that can be taught, and I think you need to work on it, staying on, his toes instead of getting flat-footed defensively. And I think he needs to really work on his ball handling this offseason. We're coming to the end of the season. We're going to start talking about looking forward, but as far as effort from Al today, that was right. I mean, look, he is a bigger guy than I think he thinks he is, and he's got longer arms than I think he thinks he does, and he can finish at the rim. He can get physical with guys. He can go up and go for a rebound against another guard and likely win it because he just has that athleticism and reach and all that stuff. And so seeing him do that today really, was a positive. The question with Al, and the question has been with a couple of these guys, is how does that carry over to the next game? We saw confidence build. We saw him do some things. We saw him go right up against Coburn a few times. He's got that confidence. We saw Rob Finney do that as well. Do they carry that over? Can they build on that? Or is it just, this was just a Sunday in March, and the next time they come out, it'll be a completely different day of the week. And so we don't know what to, day of the week and month, and we don't know what to expect. So that's the thing about Al is he's been contributing more lately. He's gradually been contributing a little bit more. He's had more confidence to take jump shots. He's had more confidence to fight and get to the line. He's had more confidence to, unfortunately, handle the ball a little bit too much, which has been bad for Indiana. But there have been signs of progress there, as there have been with Rob Finney. you've seen signs of progress with him having more confidence in his shot, having more confidence going to the rim and trying to finish, having more confidence defensively. The question is, do they keep building on that? Or is that, just going to be a run of 4 games where they stopped cold and reverted back to their old selves? I mean, obviously, as an Indiana fan, you're hoping that's something they're building on. But we've seen before, guys hit walls and takes them a long time to recover, or, they get injured and they get set back months instead of set back like a week. Let's hope that these guys are moving forward and progressing. And we're seeing more and more of what they can become and what they will become, as opposed to just it's giving us a glimpse and then, the light's going to go out.
I do also, I like his mentality at the end of games. He wants the shot. Like some people criticized him in that Maryland game when he took that 1-3, early in the shot clock. But he does want to take these shots. And for a team with a lot of guys that are reticent to kind of step up offensively, I'll give Al that. It's also worth noting that when Indiana was down 2 with about 30 seconds left, it looked like Archie wanted to run a play for Al, and I think he just completely forgot what they were doing.
They were going to run the exact same play where he got fouled on the arm, and Al didn't hear him.
But that's part of the issue with Al is the awareness, the mentality, some of those things. Because when you see it, he can really be a player who can make some of those plays. His last 6 games, he had 6 points against Iowa, 17 against Michigan, 7 against Minnesota, 14 against Penn State, 2 against Purdue.
He was the only guy against Michigan we thought played well.
Yeah, but that's the up and down nature of him right now. And so again, with Indiana coming home, really needing to get some work done in these 2 home games, you've got to get the Al that you got today. And not the guy who only had 2 points against Purdue. Those are the big moments that stood out to me. Obviously, there are others, but any big moments stand out to you, Ryan?
No, I mean, I thought that you mentioned them, but Jerome Hunter's 2 threes were huge, and they kind of changed the momentum of the game and kind of took us from possibly falling off the cliff to really getting them right back in that game. I also thought that the Al foul on the 3 was the biggest moment of the game. I know it's not one you might have missed, but I thought that was the biggest moment of the game. That was a chance. Indiana had some momentum, and then the ball just fluttered out of bounds, and Illinois got it. So I thought that was a huge deal.
The other really big play, and I think it was actually just the best individual sequence for Indiana all day long, is at the 2-minute mark in the first half. When Coburn got the ball down low, Trayce really did a nice job of walling up, and then Rob Finney came down and just stuffed the crap out of him.
Yep, that was amazing.
Shot. And then I think Jerome got it up to Rob, and Rob, got it in transition, found Trayce for the bucket. And, that's the other issue, and this can lead us in, Ryan, to talking about stats, which is, Indiana one of Indiana's big keys defensively was to not let Illinois get out and run. And Illinois only had 8 fast break points. Indiana only had 10 turnovers. And, look, a lot of, we talked about the boneheaded turnover by Al. And on the very next possession, Justin Smith traveled. Like, they had some of these really bad turnovers that took them out of opportunities to score, but they didn't have a lot of the live ball turnovers that went the other way. And so
that's the difference. I mean, it's almost 2 different categories, turnovers and live ball turnovers. You don't mind an offensive foul if you're being aggressive going to the hoop and a guy happens to step in on you. You don't mind, 2 guys miscommunicating on a pass. That kind of thing happens. As long as it doesn't happen all the time, that kind of thing happens. The ball goes out of bounds. Like, you don't mind that. You mind the live ball things where you're handing them a fast break the other way. That's the biggest. I'd rather have a dead ball turnover than a really bad shot that leads to a run out.
Yeah.
I mean, I honestly would. And so I think that those almost need to be 2 different stats, live ball and dead ball turnovers.
Yeah. Now the issue on the other end is for Indiana, we know how important transition offense is.
Yeah.
And Indiana was only able to get, I think, 7. No, they got 9 fast break points. So we did win that by 1. But if you're Indiana, you probably needed more than that, for
especially
a team
because
that struggles
Illinois
so much in the half court. And we only forced 7 turnovers on them.
And Illinois is such a good team defensively on the interior that you have to get out and run more so they don't have a set. You're not running against a set defense, especially, if Indiana shot was a knockdown shooting team, you'd be okay facing them in the half court, but Indiana isn't. I mean, I know they shot well today, but, they got 8 threes instead of 12. And so it's just a different, you've got to get out and get those easy buckets in transition because once they're entrenched, it's real tough to score on them.
Yeah, and look, a lot of the stats were similar as you would expect in a 1-point game. Points in the paint, Illinois wins 32-28. Obviously, Coburn had the 6 blocks, and each of his blocks was a very loud block that was very noticeable. But Indiana had 5 block shots too. The Hoosiers did a pretty nice job challenging at the rim. I thought Race Thompson had a few really nice possessions when, Io and other guys had beaten their man of being able to step up and challenge a dribbler, which is so difficult to do. But he, got vertical, challenged guys. Trayce had a few blocks. Rebounding, Indiana really did a nice job. We're seeing Indiana get back to rebounding. They out-rebounded Illinois by 8. They were able to get a lot of offensive rebounds as well.
They mentioned on the broadcast, Illinois is one of the best rebounding teams in the country, and they beat them by 8 on the road. And that was impressive. I mean, Trayce had, what was it? How many he had 7 offensive rebounds on his own. I mean, that's incredible. So, while Trayce didn't have the game offensively we wanted, he was doing a lot of those things that he needs to consistently do to help this team, and even went overboard. I mean, 7 offensive rebounds is a ton.
Yeah, and, look, I think, again, Devonte Green, those 2 threes early in the first half were really big. You talked about how he was able to drive and get to the free throw line, was 3 for 3 there. We talked about the importance of those assists to Jerome Hunter. Like, Devonte Green made some good plays today. The issue is, obviously, Devante also made some bad plays, and I thought there was a stretch there. It was right after that stretch where it was 53-53, and Illinois, I mean, they were missing shots too. I thought they really had a chance to put some distance between us and them.
They missed some open shots.
They missed some open shots, and that was really important for Indiana. But also, Devante got in there, took a long 3 his first possession in, drove in, missed a 2, and he had a few really just give up defensive efforts where he didn't even try to stay in front of his man. And it came in bunches, and that was the issue. Is I thought Devante's bad plays, as they often do, came in bunches, and Illinois really seemed to take advantage of that. And so, those missed shots that Devante had and some of those poor decisions. Look, we know this is just the bargain that we have to make this year. You need Devante for his shot making and some of those plays that he can make as a guard, and you're going to give up something. It was funny in the first half. He hit those threes, and then he had a bad stretch after that. And I tweeted, Devante take or giveth, and Devante taketh away. Coach texted the exact same thing at the exact same time.
At the exact same moment. Yeah.
No one's breaking any news here as we go down the stretch of Devante's senior year. You needed the plays that he made to stay in this for an offensively challenged team, but obviously those plays that he wasn't able to make really hurt Indiana. So,
and I thought that he did some, one of the things that I thought Indiana actually moved the ball pretty well today, and the passing was pretty good. And as we saw with the low turnovers, they were making solid passes and solid decisions with the basketball. And I thought there were a couple times he got the ball with about 17 seconds and just stood still dribbling for 10 seconds, as we've seen him do this year, just waiting for something to happen. Or whether or not he's doing that on purpose so he gets to drive at the end of the shot clock, I don't know, but we just see the offense come to a halt. He's what they call a ball stopping guard, and the ball, when the ball goes around, ball stops when it comes to him. And I just think that hurts Indiana so much sometimes. And it's like, we've seen the potential of Devante, and look, there are some games this year that Indiana's won that they don't win without Devante. Obviously that's true. I mean, there are several of them, and there are several games where even you could say, a close win where he had a couple threes. Well, they don't do that without him either. But there are times where Devante slows this team down when they need to be speeding up and they need to be attacking, and they just it turns into he's just pounding the ball into the floor out on the, beyond the 3-point line, waiting for something to happen, as opposed to going and making something happen. And then he has to force something to happen within the last 5 seconds of the shot clock. We saw that a couple times today, and it was frustrating because I felt like all of the times that happened, Indiana actually had something going on. And it just kind of brought the train to a screeching halt. And that can't happen. It not from a senior guard. It cannot happen from a senior guard. It's going to happen the rest of the year. We're going to be frustrated by it. That's just that's the bargain you've struck, as you said. Very well, actually. I'm surprised it's taken you this long to come up with that one. That was a good one, Jerod. But that's the bargain you've struck by having Devonte Green as a senior guard who's going to get meaningful minutes. Is you're going to get some crazy shots that go in. You're going to get some heat check. You're going to get a guy who hits 4 threes in a half, in a stretch of about 5 minutes. And you're also going to get just deserts of offensive play that just aren't what you want. And then on the other end, he's going to wind up trying to make a play defensively by going for a steal when he should just keep his man in front of him and give up an easy layup. That's just where we're at. And we can complain about it all we don't want, but it's a reality, sadly.
The other issue for Indiana is, the Hoosiers shot 83.3% from the free throw line, which is really good. Problem is they only took 12, and Illinois took 24. And this team is not built to win a lot of games when the other team doubles them up from the free throw line. Now, the way that Indiana compensated is Indiana made 8 3-pointers. They were 8 of 16 from 3-point range. Illinois only 4 of 12. You want me to blow your mind with a statistic right now since we're doing
blow
stats?
my mind.
I will blow your mind. Indiana is 6th in the conference in 3-point shooting. So for all the talk about how awful this team is in terms of shooting threes, and they're not good, like it's 32.2%. It's not like they're a good 3-point shooting team.
Jeez, that's horrible
But
for 6th place.
I know. But remember, the line has moved back. 3-point shooting is down across the country.
Mark Titus did warn us of this.
Yes, he did. But it's, Indiana has used the 3-pointer pretty effectively in conference play at times. Now, sometimes they shoot, a few too many of them. But, as we talked about heading into the season, Al, Devonte, and Rob are capable 3-point shooters, and Jerome can knock them down too. Like, this team, they're not a good enough shooting team because they don't have enough guys on the floor who can shoot, and that's the issue.
They can't shoot their way out of a deficit or shoot their way out of it.
But percentage-wise, at a very low volume, because they're 13th in the conference in volume, so that's the issue. They're not taking a lot of them. But percentage-wise, they're kind of using the 3-point line how they want to, which is don't take a lot of them, take good ones, and let's try to shoot as high a percentage as possible with, having good shot selection. So they're doing that. Here's the issue. Here's the other stat that is concerning. Indiana, number 1 in the conference in free throw rate, which is very good. The Hoosiers are 14th in the conference in defensive free throw rate. So we're just putting teams on the line too much. And the reason why we're doing that is because we can't contain the point of attack. You are going to foul when guys are driving into you. You're getting in help situations. You're going to end up fouling dribblers to try and contain those guys. And then if you're helping, sometimes you're going to be off balance and you're going to be fouling, and there's just going to be more plays at the rim. And that's the issue with this team defensively. The defense is improving overall. It's 34th in the country in adjusted defensive efficiency, and Indiana hasn't given up more than 66 points since the Minnesota game, so the defense is better.
They just gave up 67, Jerod.
What? I'm sorry, that's what I meant, more than 67. But in terms of raw efficiency, Indiana 11th in the conference in defensive efficiency. So it is a defense that just over the course of the season is getting a little better right now, but still has a lot of holes in it. And I thought that's really what was exposed today is Indiana could not contain the point of attack defensively, and they fouled too much. And again, you go on the road and score 66 points with, in some ways the efficiency Indiana did. I think this is a game Archie Miller would expect to win. And I have a feeling, I haven't watched the post game, but I have a feeling he's going to be really disappointed that the defense didn't do enough. Even though the raw number isn't that high, there were enough breakdowns that I think are really going to tick him off. And that's one of the biggest things I take from this game.
Well, when you think about it this way, that Indiana fouled 19 times, and there were a couple late that were intentional. So the fouls with Illinois were pretty much even, 19-16, and Indiana fouled intentionally twice at the end. So you put that at basically 17-16. But of those 19 fouls, they shot 24 free throws. So we were fouling them at the rim a lot is what it means to me, or fouling them in situations where they were already in the bonus.
They were getting to the rim anytime they wanted to.
Yeah. And so that's also the difference in the fouls. And do I think that there were some uncalled fouls at the rim that would have helped Indiana? Of course. But the thing is that when the disparity is 24-12, you look at the officials a little bit, but you also look at where you're fouling and where you're allowing the team to beat you. And that means you're getting beat. They fouled Coburn a lot at the line. I mean, because there's no other recourse but to foul that guy when he gets the ball deep in the paint.
But the thing, Coburn is not concerned about you when he's going to the basket. Like, he is going up strong and going to play through contact. And the issue is Trayce put it up soft at times. Race was very hesitant around the rim.
Yep. And they were hesitant because of him.
Sure.
But here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll say about it is that Coburn if he gets the ball in the paint, he's going to score or get fouled, unless he just misses wildly. And he doesn't do that too much. I mean, look, he only put up 6 shots today because and that number's down because he got fouled so much, and those don't count as shots when you're get fouled shooting. Yeah. So the key is to not let him get the ball in there and to move him off his spot or maneuver around him. And you saw Illinois was willing to go over the top to him when they fronted him. They were, and so the key is to move him off his spot or to drive at him, get him fouled, and get him out of the game, or get him to foul and get him out of the game. And Indiana didn't really do either today. And I'm sure they certainly tried. It wasn't effective. And so you got to get better at that. When there's one player you want to eliminate from a team, and clearly Illinois goes as Coburn goes. I mean, their guards are good, and Io is really good. and he's a winning player, and he's gonna make big plays. But Coburn is the anchor of that team, and so you have one player on that team you're really afraid of. You got to find a way to get him off the floor or make him ineffective. And Indiana didn't really do that today. They tried. They certainly had a game plan, and they tried. It just didn't happen. And when that doesn't happen, chances are you're going to lose a close game. I mean, it's going to come down to it, and you're going to lose.
And this may seem odd for me to say because Coburn is only a freshman, although, he's got the body of like a third-year NBA player. I mean, he's massive.
Oh, this
is a game where I thought you really needed more out of your upperclassmen big men in terms of just being physical, and Joey and Duran didn't bring it. I mean, Joey was kind of what he's been, and I thought Duran was as bad and unaware of what was going on today as he's been in a long time. He gave up that wide open layup to Georgie.
Yep.
On offense, he had that possession where he could have taken that 15-foot jumper, which he's been making, and instead he dribbled himself into a floater. He just wasn't locked in. And when you're facing a big physical guy like that, to help out your freshman, who is much more of an athlete than just a big physical guy, that's not as much Trayce's game yet, you need some of that kind of brute force from Joey and Duran to help neutralize Coburn. And Indiana did not get that. And that was always going to make this a real big challenge if those guys didn't bring a little bit more.
I would have liked to have seen Duran in there offensively a little bit more. I mean, he only played 8 minutes and he really didn't get much run. I would have liked to seen him back to the basket on Coburn just to see if he could draw fouls. It has nothing to do with, is he better?
I just think
Coburn?
Archie saw that he wasn't very locked in and didn't get more minutes.
And quite frankly, Indiana went small in the second half. They essentially went small.
And they started that way. We should give Archie some... Yeah, some
Ray Stomps
applause.
The second half.
We've been talking about it. Now, it wasn't great. I think Indiana ended up losing the opening segment 7-4, but the very first possession,
Race also picked up his third.
They dumped it inside, and Race played really good defense, and it was
and Race also picked up his third foul really fast. So
yeah,
it probably changed the way they had to play a little defensively and all that stuff. So
yep. Yeah. Okay. Well, coming up on the assembly call, we're going to hand out our game balls. Then we will hit some other lingering storylines from this game. And then, Ryan, we got to look ahead to next week. A couple of really big games for Indiana. Then it's time for last call. That's next here on the assembly call. Stick with us.
This is Jordan Halls, and I never miss a shot or an episode of the Assembly Call.
All righty. Thank you, Jordan. You are listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. Catch us live immediately following every IU basketball game, plus every Thursday night at our website, assemblycall.com. While you're at our website, make sure that you sign up for our free IU Hoops email newsletter. Over 7,000 of your fellow IU fans have subscribed. You can also text 66866 to subscribe to the newsletter, or text IU to 66866. That is IU to 66866. Then you can join the newsletter. I'm Jared Morris here with Ryan Phillips. We are picking up the pieces after the Hoosiers go on the road to Champaign. Put forth a valiant effort. Don't execute enough down the stretch. Obviously, a few calls didn't go Indiana's way as well. And the final result was a 1-point loss for the Hoosiers that drops them to 2-8 on the road in conference play. But certainly with the arrow pointing up a little bit after beating Minnesota, playing moderately better against Purdue, and then certainly, having their best performance in a loss on the road today.
Let me say this. Since the Michigan game, I think the efforts in every game have been there. The effort has been there.
They have kept their belief in what they're doing.
Purdue, they just
executed very well.
Yeah, Purdue, they couldn't get anything done, but I never felt like they weren't playing hard or had given up. I just felt like offensively nothing worked. They shot 25%, which is staggeringly bad. But Purdue shot terribly too. It was one of those games where just it was contagious. Nobody could make a shot, and Indiana just didn't do anything it wanted and give Purdue credit defensively.
Why are you talking about that game again?
Because I'm trying to tell you that I think the effort has been really good, and there are lulls in the effort. There were even lulls in the effort today. But I feel like overall they're playing hard, which is something that I know that's stupid to say at the end of the season. That has been a real problem for Indiana this year, even in wins, is having full 40-minute effort.
The thing is, actually, I think it's less about playing hard. I mean, that is what we see on the court. it's about their belief in what they're doing. Because I think in some of the road games when they've really cratered, it's because things have been going bad, and you can just see, like, if you don't believe in what you're doing, you stop giving the effort.
And you
can
tell
that's
the facial
like
expressions.
Their attitude and just their togetherness and just their being on the same page with the coach is better. And that, if you want to take some hope, even from these last 2 road games where Indiana lost, and I know I'm not saying they're moral victories because they were losses and they're disappointing, and I think we've pointed out a lot of the execution issues that lost them. But if you want to say, okay, is there something that we can take out of this, though, that makes me feel better about these upcoming home games, and maybe that, Indiana will be competitive in the Big Ten tournament, it's that they seem like they're on the same page and actually getting a little bit better here as we go down the stretch. You've just, you face some tough teams on the road, and it was going to take better performances than what Indiana did to win, but it was at least better than what they'd been doing before. Now, it's not going to mean anything if they don't carry it forward, win these home games, and do something in the Big Ten tournament.
Got to win both these home games.
Yeah, it's at least it's something that I think you can at least take away from this. Let's do the game balls real quick, and then we got to talk more Rob Finney because we haven't talked about him enough, and he was too important a player in this game to let it go without us talking about him. My game ball is going to Al Durham for all the reasons that I already articulated.
Yep,
so I don't really need to get into it too much more.
Al is my pick. 13 points. 2 rebounds, 2 assists, only 1 turnover after he really struggled against Purdue with his turnovers. Only 1 turnover, played 31 minutes. He was I believe he was a plus.
He was even.
Oh, he was even. Okay. They adjusted that. He must have, because they had him at +1 before. They must have been an error on the stat sheet. But I also thought that he had a steal. He hit all 5 of his free throws, which is key. At 2 of 3 threes. He got fouled on another 3, so he really would have made all his threes today, or at least been 2 of 2 with some free throws coming. So really a good performance from Al, and hopefully a building to something.
Yeah, and look. It might be kind of grading Trayce on a curve because he did go on the road and have 12 points, 12 boards, 2 blocks, and played a lot of minutes and still played well. But I just think for him, the line he had to reach was more than 9 shots, and he had to do a better job inside. And so I just thought in terms of which guy played their role better, Trayce was the better player overall. He did more things than Al, so we should just say that. But in terms of which guy excelled more in the role that was being asked of him today, I think that's Al. So that's why, to me, he gets it. Now, let's talk about Rob Finney because we haven't talked about him a lot. And this was a really interesting game from Rob. It was kind of the big, giant, mixed grab bag of Rob Finney that we've seen a lot this season, where it's like, all right, on the one hand, he scored in double figures. He knocked down a huge, obviously the 3 that he hit at the very end, that made it a 1-point game, and that's fine. But the 3 that he made when it was 65-60 was huge. That is a massive shot. I thought this is one of the best rebounding games I've seen from him in a while. He was tough and really skying for rebounds, but only had 2 assists. And, and he only played 29 minutes. And I say only because if this guy is your point guard and he's the guy that you trust to run your team.
Especially on the road.
You play more than 29 minutes. And I know, Alex said, he was sitting close to the bench. And he said, at one point, I think he tweeted this out too, that, Archie said, Rob has got to run our team. He was frustrated because Rob wasn't getting them into what they wanted to do offensively, wasn't taking charge enough. And that's, Rob has to be that guy. Devante is the guy that you bring in to try and be the microwave to give you offense. Al is the guy that you look to be a secondary scorer and to make plays like he did today. When we talk about Trayce Jackson-Davis only getting 9 shots, part of the responsibility for that falls on the shoulders of Rob Finney when he's out there on the court. And so, you saw some stuff from him today. The shot making, the drive into the basket that he made was nice. He had a few good plays in transition, but again, I
want to say about his driving.
You have to get more from him to win on the road. And that's you look at where on the margins could Indiana have won this game. Trayce gets more shots and Rob is better as your leader on the court. And clearly Archie's frustrated. And that's why we've come on the show the last couple games and there have been really key stretches where Rob's been off the court. At the end of the first half against Purdue, in the Penn State game from like the 5-minute mark to the 2-minute mark. And it's like, why is he not playing? And I'm really starting to think that it's a lot less, Archie forgot about him. Archie's been doing this for a while. I don't think he forgets about his point guard. And more, Rob is just kind of in the mix in a guard rotation, not the guy that he fully trusts. And the path for this team to be really good was always for Rob to be that guy, and he's just not there yet. So for whatever amalgamation of reasons that is the case, it's the case. And so, a decent performance from Rob today, but he left enough on the table that really is one of the big differences between winning and losing.
Yeah, and I'll say this about Rob, that he was 4 of 13 from the field today, but a lot of those were decent shots where he's driving in and trying to make something happen inside against a good defensive team. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with Rob Finney driving and trying.
Yes,
to
drive more. I want him
because
to drive
because he's a great finisher. If he has a game where he doesn't finish well at the rim, I'm going to write that off as, all right, he had a tough game. But I want that guy driving and finishing. He's an outstanding finisher at the rim. He's great at finishing layups. He just is. I mean, I know it's a weird, skill to have.
I cannot go that far. You've said that before. He fine, is, but he's not outstanding. I mean, he got rejected by the backboard once. Like
because it was fine because he got forced under the backboard by Coburn.
But I mean, he's fine at it. I want to see him drive more. So don't get me wrong. He's not outstanding.
I think he's a good finisher, and I will always say that. I have seen him finish in tough situations before. The problem is I don't think he has the confidence right now to do it. And I think he has the ability. I guess that's where our difference is what I'm saying is he has the ability to do that. Okay. I don't think he always does. I understand it. He was 4 of 13 today. He doesn't always finish great, but he is the kind of guy that can do that consistently. He just has to believe that he is.
Yeah, and I also think on the other end, his defense was certainly better than the other guards, but you kind of need him to be elite defensively in terms of, you need the guy that you saw against Cassius Winston last year, a performance that we keep bringing up that is, taking on legendary status, but that's because he was terrific in that game. And that's the guy that you need spearheading your defense. Indiana didn't get that, and again, that was part of the reason why the defense struggled. Is you didn't have any guard really that could consistently keep Illinois' guys in front of you, and that's fair. Going to be a challenge for any defense. It's especially going to be a challenge for the pack line that Indiana plays. Is there anything else from this game? I think we've talked about most of the guys. I thought Archie. I do want to say this. We talked about him making the change from the starting lineups in the second half. I thought he used timeouts a little bit differently today.
Yep.
He used them earlier to kind of thwart runs. Kind of wish we had done that at certain times earlier in the year, but it certainly seemed to work because for the most part, Indiana didn't allow those big runs that we've seen. And when that one happened toward the end of the game, they fought their way back again. For the most part, the lineups made sense. I thought Indiana had a good strategy. The team mentally was there. I thought this was a pretty well coached game from Archie. Now he's got to start winning some of these, and it would have been a big one if he could have won it. And he's got to find a way to get Trayce the ball more. So that obviously is an issue.
Yeah.
But I thought in a lot of ways, he put the team in a position to win, but playing the kind of defense he wants to play with guards that aren't good at keeping men in front of them, that's going to lead to issues. So whether you want to, in a macro sense, say that he should adjust what he's doing, but overall, he had the guys ready to play, and a game was there for the taking, and they just didn't do it. So, it was a pretty good.
No, I thought he had a good coaching performance. You have a chance to win against a good team on the road in a tough environment late in the season. I think you've done a good coaching job. And it wasn't a game where, had Indiana hit 15 threes and played terribly offensively and just gotten lucky with shots, that'd be one thing. But I thought that the team was ready to go. And I think that he played well.
Yeah. All right. So looking ahead, we don't have Andy and Coach here to give us previews of these teams, but I don't think we necessarily need to dive into the nitty gritty because we've played these teams before. We know them. Wednesday, it's Minnesota. Saturday, it's Wisconsin. Now, of these two games, Ken Pom has Indiana projected as a 2-point winner in both of them. Certainly the Wisconsin one seems a lot tougher given how they've been playing on the road and just the issues that Indiana has had with Wisconsin in recent past, although we did beat them last year. But it is absolutely 100% imperative that Indiana come out and win Wednesday night against Minnesota. Because, Indiana, even with this loss, if Coach or Andy were here, they would tell us that at 18-11, 8-10 in conference play with, Indiana's in the top 5 or 6 in terms of, victories over top 25 teams. They have a good record against quad 1, or at least a good volume of victories. The Hoosiers would be in the tournament as of today. That doesn't mean that if they lose out, they would maintain that spot. Indiana still has work to do. They're probably a 9 seed or a 10 seed right now. And to me, you have got to win that game against Minnesota because they're the more beatable of the two teams. And there's something about Wisconsin, and particularly this Wisconsin team with the way they play and the issues we've had against them. I don't really want all that pressure riding on that game more than there already will be. So I really feel like getting this win over Minnesota is really going to be important coming into that, because now you're at 19, you're feeling a lot better, and obviously there's always going to be pressure. It's senior day, it's Wisconsin, like all of that, but it feels like a much taller mountain to climb. If you're 18-12, you've lost 3 in a row, and you're starting to feel the pressure of like, holy crap, we better win another one.
Here's why you can feel good about Indiana a little bit heading into this week. I know neither of these teams are ranked, but you feel good about Indiana being able to step up when it needs to. Even with the loss to Illinois, I guess Illinois is not ranked, okay, but even losing to Illinois, they're 5-3 against ranked teams. They can beat good teams, and they can beat teams when they need to, and they can step up, and they'll be at home.
Yeah.
The Minnesota game must win. There's no question about that to me. I think you got to win both of these to not have to worry about the Big Ten tournament. I mean, you win both of these, you don't have to worry about the Big Ten tournament, which, let's face it, as Indiana fans, we want to be in a situation where we do not have to worry about the Big Ten.
Let that be gravy. That be gravy.
So, and by the way, you win these 2 games, you finish your season at 500 in the Big Ten, in the toughest
and 20
conference.
Wins.
At the toughest conference in America, by far, one of the toughest years in the toughest conference in America, you finish at 500. You don't feel like we're not going to have a parade for finishing 500 in the Big Ten, but it's an accomplishment given what this team has gone through and who they are and who the roster is and what changes need to be made. That's decent, and you'll feel happy about that.
And you're probably going to make the NCAA tournament, and what it's going to do is it allows you to go into the offseason able to make a reasonable case that the program is still moving forward slowly,
having also
slower than we all wanted, but at least it would represent, okay, we took another small step forward and
making the NCAA tournament.
something.
I know Indiana should be far beyond this. We're not going to argue about that. IU should be on a far different level than it is right now, but you make the NCAA tournament, it lifts a huge weight off of everybody's shoulders because, okay, that drought is over. Now let's build on it, as opposed to, do we need to radically change everything? Or are we actually building towards something? You get a weight lifted off everybody's shoulder. You get Jerod, Davis, and Devante don't have to go out as the only 4 years not to at Indiana in a long time, not to go to the tournament or whatever. It just lets everybody take a deep breath and breathe a sigh of relief and say, okay, now let's build on it. And then let's build on that. And then let's build on that. And then let's build on that. So
that's important.
That's what it does.
To keep that momentum.
It's a step that needs to happen.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I feel like we have to say this just because, people, I don't know, they don't like to give the benefit of the doubt or like understand that there's nuance. Like, I think all of us are disappointed overall with where the program is this late in Archie's 3rd year, like, fair to say. But like we said, you still want to at least be able to see progress, and that's what it would do. And look, the thing is, if you make the NCAA tournament, it's almost like we're all like, okay, let's get in the NCAA tournament. And it's like, okay, we're guaranteed to lose in the first game. No, like, you get in the NCAA tournament, you actually have a shot to then kind of change the narrative of what happens after that. So
especially if you
that's
have to
why
play
it's
a Big
not,
Ten team.
Yeah.
You have to play a Big Ten team.
So it is, you're right. You got to get that monkey off your back. You got to end that stupid drought because it's been too long.
And it's
then you got a chance to go do something. So,
it's a talking point that no longer exists, and that's good for everybody within the program. It's good for the incoming freshmen to not have to answer questions about that. It's good for everybody. So that's the goal right now. Make the dang tournament, and then, once you're in the tournament, let chips fall where they may. Let Trayce Jackson show off how good he is. Let Devante Green knock down 5 threes against something. Like, whatever it is, let that happen, and then build off of that for the next season.
I mean, isn't that really the way that the Devante Green era has to end, which is Indiana squeaks into the NCAA tournament and he just uncorks like 30 straight 30-point games, goes down as a legend with delivering Indiana to their surprising
and everybody forgets everything else that's ever happened. Yeah, don't you remember when Danny Green's brother was amazing for IU?
Oh, my gosh. That was... Okay.
You know what? I hope it happens. I really hope it happens. I hope that guy closes out his career as high as he possibly can.
Of course. I do too. Okay. Let's get out of here. Monday, we'll do Banner Monday, so Mike DeCourcy will be here. Obviously, post-game show, IU Minnesota Wednesday night. And then Assembly Call Radio Thursday, we're doing our Christian Lander scouting report, right? You going to be here? Okay, so we will have
I've
all
watched
that for you.
So much Christian Lander tape. It's unbelievable.
I mean, that's fun.
Oh yeah.
Fun.
No, that's why. It hasn't been like with most of these. It's like I watch a half hour after about the first 10 minutes, you get the feel. After about the first 10 minutes, you get a feel for a player and you kind of have your scouting report, but then you watch a little more to sort of validate it. With Lander, I had him pegged in 5 minutes and I just watched the rest for fun. Like,
nice.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we all look forward to that. You are listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. Remember, because you're an Assembly Call listener, you get 20% off your entire order at homefieldapparel.com with the promo code Assembly20. So if you want a great deal on the most comfortable and unique IU apparel that you'll find anywhere, go to homefieldapparel.com, use the promo code Assembly20 for 20% off your entire order. Ryan, it is time for last call. Lead us off, because I got to go see if the Dallas Renegades can beat the Houston Rough Riders in a huge early season XFL battle.
You enjoy that.
Hey, family.
You know, I know I'm teasing you. Tough loss today because Indiana could have won it. You know, I think that there were some things working against them. Obviously, we talked about it in the opening segment. I thought that things, some luck things didn't go their way, which always stinks when you're on the road because you're going to need a degree of luck to win on the road in this league. I thought that for the most part, the storyline coming away from it for me is not the mistakes Indiana made, but the fact that they played through them and continued to play hard. And the guys we saw playing hard are the guys that are going to mean something to this team in the future. You saw Rob Finney playing hard. You saw an Illinois guy get in his face and Rob didn't back down. He stepped right up to him. I mean, we need that attitude from Rob. That's one of the things we need. We need him to sort of be a point guard and be a leader. You saw him do that. You saw Durham, who's going to be a senior next year, play well. You saw Trayce Jackson-Davis, who's coming back and is, so important to the future of Indiana basketball. I thought, he grabbed 12 rebounds, 7 offensive rebounds, and battled as much as he could. You saw Race Thompson. I thought, while his numbers didn't back him up because he was in foul trouble, I thought he played well. I thought Jerome Hunter hit down some key threes. I thought Armand Franklin came in, played some really good defense for a few minutes. He only got 5 minutes, but I thought it was nice to see him out there. And he and Trayce Jackson-Davis were at a nice little 2-man game going on one possession. You saw sort of some flow there. So you saw all of these guys who are going to be back next year sort of learning how to play on the road. And you've seen it over the last couple of games that these guys are starting to build something. It may not be, I'm not saying those guys are going to go win a national title next year, but I'm saying you're seeing progress from the young players who are going to be so important to this program, and they're the ones leading now. And that's a bummer because you want your seniors to lead and you want your old guys to lead, but you're seeing the guys who are most impactful to the team be that younger group, and they're sort of taking it on themselves to lead now. I think that's really important for Indiana. Didn't work out in the end today. Another shot falls, another foul gets called, another, turnover bounce goes our way or something. Maybe it's a different story, but I thought they played hard and they played tough for most of the game when they could have wilted at several spots. And quite frankly, at one spot, I texted you guys, I thought they had wilted and I was wrong. They stepped up and came back. And I thought that it was just because I'm used to the familiar patterns. I thought they got to a point where it was, all right, this game's just going to get away from them. And they hit some shots. They stepped up. They played defense. And that was really important to see, I think, for this team as the season closes down. Got to go get 2 wins this week, though. You got to make up for the missed opportunity in Illinois. You got to make up for the missed opportunity against Wisconsin or against Maryland. You got to make up for some of these missed performances by taking care of business at home this week.
By the way, you want to know what chaps my rear end? We talked about the poor officiating. One thing that I didn't like, you mentioned that Rob Finney play where the guy elbows Rob, then gets in his face, jaws at him. Jerome Hunter got a technical for sticking his finger up, and that guy didn't get a technical for that. Ridiculous.
Yeah, no, it's inconsistent. And here's the thing. I'm okay with them not giving a technical in that situation today.
Yeah, I am too. It just made me think
pissed they did it the other time. Yeah.
I know. Jerome did not deserve that technical foul. Although, I guess the moral of the story, kids, just don't put your finger up, because putting your index finger up is so egregious that you're going to get a
whatever you want,
but
do not raise that finger.
Yeah, do not raise that index finger, kids. I echo a lot of what you said. I'm really disappointed that Indiana lost this game because a winnable game was there, and it felt like, with some smarter execution and Indiana doing more of the things that they wanted to do, you get that. Obviously, I think this was really a game where some calls hurt Indiana down the stretch. It is what it is. There have been some games where Indiana's been helped by some calls too. So, that sometimes those things kind of even out, but it just sucks that there's so much of it, because on individual game situations, really just hurts the overall experience of the players and the fans watching. So that part of it is disappointing. And I think Indiana's got to get to a point now where they start winning some of these games. Archie Miller with only 2 road wins, and I think he won 3 road games in his first year and 3 road games in his second year. The difference is when they won those road games, obviously the Michigan State game being the big exception of this last year, those were road games against teams in the 60s and in the 70s and in the hundreds in Ken Palm. And this year they obviously won the one against Minnesota, only the other one against Nebraska. And it's one of my big disappointments now exiting the season that Indiana wasn't able to get more done on the road. And a big reason for that is there were just so many give-up efforts on the road where you just didn't give yourself a chance. There are going to be games on the road like today where, you go toe-to-toe with a good team. Illinois is not a great team, but they're a good team. And you don't make some plays, calls goes against you, whatever, and you lose by 1. Like, damn, that sucks, but it's life in the Big Ten. What should have happened this year is more road games like this, where it's close and you give yourself a chance, because you might need to have 3 or 4 close ones like this to get one against a good team. And Indiana's issue this year is they got blown out in so many of them, they didn't have a chance down the stretch. And so they finally got this one. They weren't able to get it. And that's got to be something as we move forward with this program that Indiana gets better at. And it's not just about effort, because we talked about that. The effort was there, the belief in what they're doing, but toughness and execution. At the end of games when plays really need to be made. And that's something that's still missing and preventing Indiana, and obviously just playmaking and overall skill. But, toughness and that ability to execute in big moments against against good teams in their place for 40 minutes. We just haven't seen enough of it this year. And so, I tip my cap to the team and to the coach for what they put out there today. This was a good road effort by a good Big Ten team. My issue and my real disappointment is more about the road efforts that came before than it is about this one. Losing by 1 to Illinois, it's disappointing. There's no shame in it. The issue is you got to win some of these. But to win these, you've got to give yourself a chance. And too often this season, Indiana didn't give themselves a chance. So that's something that has to get better. But for now, the road games are behind us. Indiana will not play on the road anymore. They have got to go home and do what they do best, which is take care of business at home, beat, a decent team in Minnesota and then a good team at Wisconsin. You do that, an NCAA tournament bid is waiting for you to take. Indiana will make the NCAA tournament if they get 20 wins and win these 2 games. It's right there on the table, guys. Do what you got to do. You've played better. You're improving. Now let's finish strong, win these 2 games, and let's get to the NCAA tournament. All right, that is going to do it for us on this edition of the Assembly Call IU postgame show. If you want to see us do the show live and be part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/assemblycall. And don't forget to go to assemblycall.com or text IU to 66866 to join our free email newsletter. Special thanks to Bob Thompson, who produces a lot of the music that you hear on the show. And thank you for listening, and all of you in the chat live today. We will be back to talk IU hoops again with you on Monday for Banner Monday, and then after IU Minnesota on Wednesday. Until then,
take it from me, native Hoosier Mark Titus. Keep your elbows in and your eyes on the rim. And go Hoosiers.
Thank everybody for coming out.
All right, I got to get out of here, folks. Thank you.
I don't like carrots.
Did you listen to the last show?
I didn't hear all of it. I heard like the first.
The Purdue show. You got to go back and listen to Coach's rant at the end.
That's at the end, okay? Because I saw it was a long one.
It was. The show went long, and then we went long afterwards. Coach was intense. I've got a lot of the drops, so we'll play them on Assembly Call Radio.
Yeah, I got about halfway through. I was listening to it while I worked out.
Just fast forward to the end. Listen to the after show stuff. Coach is in rare form. Rare form. All right, well. Damn.
So what are we doing? So next week, you're going to have to change my intro music,
What do you mean?
If I'm going to host the show next Sunday.
No. Well, I don't think you're hosting it. Chad will be here so he can host it.
Okay.
And Will, because my daughter's got a soccer game, so I got to miss the Wisconsin show. And then we have to figure that out because typically we do it after the senior speeches.
Yeah.
So we'll figure that out. But Will's going to be here to produce, and then Chad will host, and then it'll be you guys, unless something comes up.
How old is your daughter now?
She is 3.
I couldn't remember if she was 3 or 4, so she's 3.
Yeah, she's playing soccer for the first time. She had her first game yesterday. It was mass chaos.
Was it bunch
mass
ball?
It was insane. There were like 2 girls that kind of knew what they were doing and knew to get the ball, and they could dribble and go to the goal, and everybody else was just kind of running around.
Yeah.
My daughter was in that group. She participated for good 20 minutes, and then she kind of lost interest in it. It's probably a year too early. Probably a year too early, because you look at the other field, like the year older, and they all kind of know what they're doing.
Yeah,
but it's at least good to like be on a team.
A friend of mine's son is 2, and he's doing baseball practice now, like basically just hitting off a tee or whatever. And then they're like, he said the coach was trying to have him do like high knees and things like that, and they're all just like not paying attention. It's you got him with a bat and a tee, you got him. But then when you try to do other things, it's just not gonna happen.
No, I mean, really, like the main lesson that needed to happen before the first game was like, okay, guys, we are the gray team. We're the Wolves. The other team in the different jerseys, they're the other team. So what's our team? The Wolves. What color are we? Like, we needed to kind of go like to the basics of like what does even a team sport, consist of. So, it was fun though. It's entertaining watching them. I look forward to watching them grow from the beginning of the season till the end.
You think there's gonna be a lot of progress?
I hope so. I hope there's some progress. I do hope so. Just that they all know where to kick the ball. All right, man. Good stuff today. Disappointing. This would have been a really fun show if they'd won that game. That would have been a massive
If they had
win.
finished by hitting like a big shot at the end, oh god, it would have been.
And they did. They did finish by hitting that shot at the end. God,
I still can't
really
believe
sucked.
I can't believe they didn't call that. Like, it was one of those things where I thought they had called it, like, because everybody was reacting, and I was like, they didn't call that? Like, crazy.
I know.
I mean, the officiating in the Big Ten is just so bad.
It's
so
terrible.
bad.
It's really bad.
Like, how do you think? I don't know. I don't even want to get into it because we'll be here for another hour. But
I know.
Anyway.
All right. Time to go watch the Renegades.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Your hometown team.
Hopefully they win. Hopefully they win.
All right, buddy.
It'd be a big day for Bob Morris if they can get a win.
Thanks, everybody. What's the record right now?
2-1.
2-1. Okay.
And they're facing
I wasn't sure if they were 1-1
Houston.
or 2-1.
Yeah, so this is a big early season game here for playoff positioning.
All right, guys.
All right, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in.
Talk to you tomorrow.